Steve Jobs turned Apple into one of the biggest companies in the world. So when he passed away in 2011, people wondered, what will this mean for Apple?
This is my first product launch since being named CEO. I'm sure you didn't know that.
When Tim Cook took the stage in June 2011 for a special event to introduce a new iPhone, a seat was reserved in the front for Jobs, in case he was feeling well enough to attend. But diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, Jobs' health had worsened. The following day, he died at the age of 56. Apple's chief designer, Jony Ive, skipped the event to be at Jobs' side, as told in the book After Steve by Wall Street Journal correspondent Trip Mickle. Jobs considered Ive the second most important person at Apple after himself.
Hey, Johnny.
They had lunch together nearly every day. A typical conversation would go like this.
Hey, Johnny. Here's a dopey idea. And sometimes they were.
Jobs gave Ive the freedom for his creative juices to flow. Ive was inspired by the godfather of design, Dieter Rams' philosophy of creating simple and functional products. Yet after Jobs died, Apple appeared to shift its focus from design to prioritizing profit. Cook made Apple wealthy beyond imagination. The company's annual revenue quadrupled from $108 billion in 2011 to $394 billion in 2022. Cook made significant inroads in China and expanded Apple's services business. Despite the expansion of services and the introduction of new products, this is still Apple's most valuable product.
And we are calling it iPhone.
The iPhone still accounts for more than half of Apple's revenue. Over the years, the iPhone's camera improved and so have its chips, yet its design has remained pretty much the same, to the point that Samsung mocked Apple in this commercial.
That epic moonshot that's getting all the likes won't be yours, because this innovation is not coming soon to an iPhone near you.
Although Apple became richer under Cook, the company has been criticized for being slow to innovate. Former Apple sales executive David Sabata told the tech news website ReadWrite, "Technology-wise, I think Tim Cook is a lightweight. I never felt passion for technology from Tim like I did from Steve and some of the great engineers." Former Apple engineer Bob Burrow told CNBC that the dynamic has clearly and distinctly changed. Jobs was known for constantly pushing the design team. He once walked past a prototype of an upcoming iPhone that he didn't like and said to an engineer, "What is this bleep?" A remark characteristic of his candid demeanor. Jobs also insisted that the iPhone needed to be changed from plastic to glass, even though the design team worried that glass would crack easily. Jobs insisted and told Jeff Williams, Apple's chief operating officer, "I don't know how we're going to do it, but when it ships in June, it's going to be glass." When Ive presented the initial iPad prototypes to Jobs, the rectangular design seemed too harsh. They opted to round the edges, making it easier to slide a finger underneath and lift from a table. Jobs spent much of his time discussing prototypes by the long wooden tables outside Ive's office. On the other hand, Cook hardly swung by the design studio, and when he did, it wasn't for long. Cook explained to ESPN, "I knew what I needed to do was not to mimic Jobs. I would fail miserably at that. And I think this is largely the case for many people who take a baton from someone larger than life. You have to chart your own course. You have to be the best version of yourself." He decided to focus on business and operations. Cook would often wake up before 4 a.m. to review sales data. He'd want to know why a certain iPhone model was outselling another model in a given city. Before becoming CEO, he was Apple's chief operating officer, responsible for managing the global supply chain. He's credited with streamlining Apple's manufacturing process, which cut costs significantly. He minimized the amount of inventory Apple held at any given time, something he learned at IBM, where he was responsible for securing components to make PCs. He once declared, "Inventory is fundamentally evil," likening it to dairy products. He believed they should be viewed as perishable and not be allowed to sit around for too long. There wasn't much doubt who Jobs would pick to succeed him. Cook exuded calm and listened more than he spoke. Ive reportedly did not want the top job and was more comfortable focusing on design rather than the business side of running a company. The only other serious contender for CEO was Scott Forstall, the head of software design. However, his ego and history of conflicts ruled him out. And then Cook pushed him out of the company after the disastrous launch of Maps that Forstall oversaw.
And it is beautiful.
The maps were rife with errors. Cook even had to issue an apology. With Forstall gone, Cook handed oversight of software design to Ive, which put more on Ive's plate. One of his big ideas was adding the control center that lets you swipe from the top or bottom of the screen. Engineers originally said it couldn't be done, but Ive insisted. After Jobs died, there were critics who questioned Apple's ability to innovate. So the company desperately needed a product to wow the world and silence the doubters. In 2012, Ive arranged for Apple's top executives to meet at a hotel in San Francisco to discuss a wearable device with health sensors. And noticeably absent from the meeting was Tim Cook. He sent a message saying he had no plans to try to fill the shoes of his predecessor. Cook delegated responsibility to Ive and to the head of operations, Jeff Williams. The Apple Watch was the company's most personal product, and as a result, it came with different watch bands in various colors so people could customize it. The digital crown, to expand and contract the app icons, paid homage to the traditional watch design and blended together the past and the future. Cook unveiled the Apple Watch in September 2014, 3 years after Jobs' death.
It is the next chapter in Apple's story.
Although the excitement was palpable at the launch event, the media's reaction was lukewarm. A Bloomberg headline put it this way: "You'll want one, but you don't need one." I've anticipated Apple needed to make 40 million watches in the first year to meet demand, but Apple only sold around 12 million watches in 2015. The Apple Watch did gain traction over time, and Cook said it leapfrogged Rolex to become the most popular watch on Earth. The Apple Watch sapped a lot of energy out of Ive, who had to oversee industrial design, software design, and marketing, all without the collaboration of his creative soulmate. Ive felt as if he had to fight hard for his vision, like convincing the marketing team that the watch needed to be marketed as a fashion accessory rather than as a tech device. The watch would eventually shift from fashion to fitness in an effort to boost sales. Ive told The New Yorker that he'd become deeply, deeply tired, and that the year leading up to the watch's debut had been the most difficult he'd ever spent at Apple. Just like Cook's ability to squeeze more out of suppliers, the CEO appeared to be squeezing more out of Ive, who took a 3-week vacation in Hawaii to unwind, the longest break he'd had in years. Trip Mickle's book describes how Ive wanted to leave Apple, which alarmed Cook, who didn't want to lose the world's most famous industrial designer. The solution was for Ive to step back from day-to-day management and shift to a part-time role, focusing on future projects such as designing Apple's spaceship-like headquarters. 2 designers who reported to him would be given more daily responsibilities. Then there was the question of what would be Apple's next big thing. Launching a successful electric car would blow away any doubt about Apple's ability to innovate. At the time, Tesla was doubling its staff and developing more sophisticated batteries for its electric vehicles. Tesla was also recruiting dozens of Apple engineers. Jobs had reportedly shown interest in building an Apple car as early as 2008. Apple hired hundreds of engineers to start working on the secretive Project Titan. Ive envisioned a fully self-driving car where passengers would hop in and tell Siri where to take them, and off they went. But as Apple found out, building an autonomous car is extremely difficult, and there was no passionate leader like Jobs to spearhead things. Apple's research and development spending in 2015 hit $8 billion, with the secretive car project undoubtedly eating up a huge chunk of that budget. Reliable Apple analyst Ming-Chi Kuo believes it's unlikely an Apple car will hit the market before 2025. Apple then turned its attention to another product. Wireless earbuds would further free people from their iPhone, as the Apple Watch had done. Ive's design team had brainstormed the idea of AirPods back in 2013. When they first came out, people thought they looked a little ridiculous. Comedian Conan O'Brien poked fun at their potential for falling out of people's ears. Despite the issues, the AirPods quickly gained popularity for their sound quality and seamless integration with the Apple ecosystem. Yet it was clear Ive's influence was diminishing. He had little to no say when Cook selected a new board member to replace a longtime confidant of his, Mickey Drexler. Cook named James Bell, Boeing's former chief financial officer, to Apple's board, which addressed a lack of diversity. Ive supported diversifying the board, but preferred someone with marketing expertise over finance. Mickle's book reports a colleague defending the pick of Bell told Ive, "He's an underrepresented minority. He has a great reputation." Ive reportedly responded, "Who cares? We have to be concerned about the company. He's another one of those accountants." The appointment could be seen as demonstrating Cook's political adeptness. He was Apple's chief diplomat. He charmed the pants off Chinese ministers to secure government approval needed to use the iPhone on the country's largest wireless carrier. He navigated in an environment in which President Trump vowed to bring jobs back to America, which was worrying for a company that benefited from China's cheap labor. Cook had masterminded the outsourcing of Apple's production to China through the Taiwanese company Foxconn. There was significant controversy after a spate of suicides in the 2000s and 2010s tied to brutal working conditions in Foxconn factories. Nets were installed to catch people as they fell. Apple has taken steps to address the working conditions, including conducting regular audits and inspections. 85% of Apple's Pro lineup of iPhones is reportedly made in iPhone City, a sprawling campus in Zhengzhou, China, that employs as many as 300,000 people. Depending heavily on China hurt Apple, as COVID restrictions delayed iPhone shipments. Apple realized it had to diversify, and is now trying to open up iPhone cities in India and Vietnam. Cook also had to manage many issues unrelated to product development, like the time the FBI demanded Apple unlock an iPhone used by one of the shooters in the San Bernardino attack in 2015. Apple resisted, citing user privacy concerns. The FBI managed to access the data through the help of a third party. And in 2020, Fortnite creator Epic Games sued Apple, accusing it of anti-competitive practices. Apple had removed Fortnite from the App Store after Epic Games allowed in-app purchases in Fortnite, bypassing Apple's 30% commission. So while Tim Cook was very busy, he spent little time coming up with Apple's next big product. Instead, Apple made changes to its existing lineup, like removing the home button from the iPhone X. But the iPhone X was also delayed due to issues with the facial recognition system.
Let's try that again. Ho, ho, ho. Let's go to backup here.
The delays coincided with Ive not being in the office every day. According to Mickle's book, he moved some meetings off campus to a private club in San Francisco, which apparently irked some Apple executives. They were also reportedly not happy that Ive was believed to be getting paid much more than them. Each member of the executive team earned about $25 million annually, which was publicly disclosed to comply with the SEC's requirements. However, Ive avoided being classified as an officer, and as a result, his compensation was kept secret. Some senior Apple employees felt the best days were behind them. When top software designer Imran Chowdhury prepared to leave the company in 2016, he sent a farewell email and quoted the poet Rumi. "When you do things from your soul, you feel a river moving in you, a joy." He then played off that line by writing, "Sadly, rivers dry out, and when they do, you look for a new one." The comments infuriated management, including Ive, and Chowdhury was fired. Another employee who left, Chris Stringer, was a top designer who was unhappy with Apple's smart speaker. He believed Apple treated the HomePod like an afterthought rather than a signature product. The HomePod has lagged far behind the popularity of Amazon's Echo and Google's Nest. Ive realized how much his team struggled without him and decided to return to a more hands-on role in late 2017. Yet, it was never the same again. The successors to the iPhone X looked almost identical. Cook had hoped the lower quality XR would do well in China, but it bombed, partly due to competition from Huawei. In January 2019, Apple lowered revenue guidance to $84 billion, instead of the $89 to $93 billion it had previously projected. Cook blamed the economy and trade sanctions. But the reality was, people were also getting tired